Hello, this is Diesel with Legion of the Rogue Dragon. If you're watching this video, it's because you want to learn more about catapults in World vs. World. We're going to talk about catapults, what their functions are, how to use them at their peak efficiency, what their skills do. We're going to go over some traits with catapults, and we're generally just going to familiarize you with catapults in this video. So let's start with what do they do. We're going to start with the actual skills. And to interact with the catapult, of course, you just approach it and you press F, and you will get a whole new set of skills on the left side. 1 through 4. I'm not going to cover 5 until towards the end because that is a trait skill. So 1 through 4. Number 1 turns the catapult to the left. Number 3 turns it to the right. That's how you aim your shots, and you just hold it down. As you can see, it's moving right now. You hold it down until it is pointed in the direction you want it. Number 2 is what fires your ammunition. You hold it down longer to achieve that projectile flying further. So basically 1 and 3 aims at left and right, and then 2 aims it forward and back, closer and further away. Pardon me. So let's take a look at how this works. Number 2, you tap it. That's about the range you're going to get out of it. It's pretty short. Best way to use the number 2 skill, if you're talking about tapping it, is if the catapult is built right up against a wall. You want to just tap it really quick. You don't need to hold it down for any kind of length of time, because the range is just so ridiculously short, basically, between the catapult and the wall. So the longer you hold it, the further it's going to go. You can see that progress bar going up all the way to the top. And if you're just holding it down, when it reaches the top, it will fire on its own. And then you can let go of your key and get ready to fire the next shot. Clearly, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve there whenever you're talking about trying to dial in exactly the distance where you're firing and all that, which is why I always recommend that even though you've watched these videos with the Siege, you should get on one and familiarize yourself with that Siege personally, play around with the skills and see what it does. Great thing about the catapult is that its projectile range is affected by height. So as you can see, if I hold down till about half and I let go, it's going to go right about that far. Now, if we're talking about height differentiation, if we are firing over here to the left, it's going to go much, much further. And here we go, holding it down to halfway, letting it go. And you can see how much further it goes just because we're higher up, and therefore it can travel longer before it makes impact with the ground. So it's just going to fire further. Now, if I was to turn it again over here to the left and let's say fire on this road over here, which I'm going to do, you'll see that it'll travel much further even than the second time I fired it over in this direction, and that's because we are at an even greater height than the ground that is going to eventually make impact on. And it does take a moment to turn these catapults. This is good that that you're seeing this because it kind of gives you an idea of how long it takes to retarget with them, which is why you kind of want to put a catapult in a place where it's going to be useful and leave it there. Here we go, firing at half, and it fires, and you'll see that it goes really, really far this time. I mean, really far out there. And again, that's the same charge as that far away, and it fired all the way out to like here. So range is directly affected by height, which is fantastic. Number 4 skill on the catapult. This is how you change your ammunition. Best advice I can give you, just don't ever use it. Just don't ever hit your number 4 skill, because the other ammunition is gravel, and for the most part it is entirely useless. It is intended to be a anti kind of infantry ammunition, but for the most part completely useless. We never use it. If we use catapults for anti-infantry, we stick to the rock just because it does more damage, and it's the CC, it knocks them back. Which brings me to my next point. If you're firing a catapult on a gate, you want to focus on the portal, in part because it will hit multiple portions. It'll hit the gate and it'll hit the wall if the wall next to it is destructible. And I'm going to go into that in detail in this very next section. Through the magic of making videos, you'll see it come up as soon as we're done here. But in addition to hitting multiple targets, it will also CC, crowd control. It will knock down, knock back, kind of do a stun to anybody who is in the area where the shot lands. So if we have people trying to sort of stream into the thing that we're sieging one at a time, or even a couple of them at a time, when that catapult lands its shot on the portal, if they're in the area, it's actually going to knock them back, which is going to give us more time to attack them and kill them before they get a chance to get inside and cause us more trouble in the future. So definitely always want to aim for that portal, and just bear in mind the catapult will CC enemies. What do we mainly use catapults for? You can probably guess we use them for sieges. We use them to knock down walls. We very rarely use them for gates. If we're forced to, we will. But for the most part, the catapult is a structurally destroying siege weapon. It's not intended for anti-infantry, for example, and we don't use it for anti-infantry unless it's already there and the opportunity arises. And usually we will use it for walls, because it does more damage to walls than it does to gates. Again, like I said, sometimes we're forced to use it on gates due to some kind of extreme situations, but for the most part, walls. Catapult for walls. When catapults are placed and then they are built, if you do not have catapult mastery under your traits, please just wait a moment. Make sure that someone else who has catapult mastery isn't going to jump on it. Obviously, you know, there are some benefits there to having someone with catapult mastery on it. They do more damage. They have this great little number 5 skill, which we're going to go over right now. And it's just a good idea to kind of hold off for a minute. Don't jump on it immediately when it gets built. See if someone who has catapult mastery is going to get on it. If everyone kind of abides by that general rule of thumb, then we will never have to worry about people with catapult mastery not being on the catapult, because they'll be on it first. So let's talk about Siege Bubble. Great skill. I love this skill. Only a 20-second cooldown. It doesn't last very long. Duration, as you see, is 3 seconds, but it blocks all projectiles. So it blocks cannon shots, it blocks arrow carts, it blocks trebuchets, it blocks enemy catapults. Nothing will make contact with the area. In addition to protecting your catapult and yourself from enemy siege and enemy players that are firing at range, it also protects anybody who's within the circle. So I'm going to go ahead and use it right now. This is what it looks like, and this guy who's running by me right now, he would actually be protected just like myself and the catapult from any ranged attacks of any kind. Fantastic skill. I love it. It is kind of high on the traits, but very, very useful. Extremely useful. As I mentioned, if the catapults are built right against the wall, let's say, for example, this destructible wall here, if we're going to try and destroy it, and we're trying to go with a ninja, meaning we want the wall down before they even know we're here, we're going to drop the cats right against the wall. And if you man that cat and it's right up against the wall, then all you need to do, as I mentioned, is just tap that number 2. You don't need to hold it down at all. Just tap it real quick. That's going to have less charge up time for each shot, which equals overall more damage in the long run, because you're firing more rapidly. Listen, always listen to the commander when we're sieging. Just because the wall goes down doesn't mean you need to jump off your catapult and rush in right away, unless that is what is said. If the commander says, hey, as soon as this wall goes down, guys, we're going to rush in right away and get into a position to do, an inner siege, for example, for a keep, that's what you want to do. But make sure you're paying attention to what the commander is saying. Oftentimes, we hold off for just a second before we rush in so we can avoid being ambushed. So just always keep your ears out. It's kind of a basic World versus World tip. Same for Rams as well. And I guess we'll talk about traits. To be honest with you, I can't think of anything else to talk about with the catapult. Let me pause this for a moment, and I'm going to talk about how you want to fire your catapult, in what direction you want to fire your catapult when we're talking about these portals. So let's cover that real quick, and then we're going to cover traits. If you happen to find yourself in a situation where you're manning a catapult to assist in a siege, and you are hitting the front wall, for example, this wall right here in front of this tower, you'll notice that it's right next to the gate. Let me get a little closer in on that. So here we have the front of the tower. We have the gate, we have this destructible wall. You know it's destructible because you can click on it. And then we have this portal, which lets you in and out. Of course, if this was not our tower, I would not be able to go in and out. I would not be allowed to use that portal. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're manning a catapult and you're hitting this front area, best thing for you to do is to take your catapult and aim it for that red portal, whatever the portal may be. It may be blue, it may be green, it may be red. But you want to aim for the portal. And the reason is, boom, if you were to hit right there, or even just a little bit lower, but the point is, if you were to hit right on that portal, you're going to hit both the wall with splash damage, the wall, and the gate. Therefore, more damage overall, more destruction overall on the enemy tower, requires more supply for them to get it up, you know, if they want to burn off their supply and just kind of keep things up and keep us out. They're not going to be able to do that if you're knocking down both the wall and the gate. That may have even struck both if this was an enemy tower. So again, the portal that people use to get in and out, pretty much you always want to target both the gate and the wall by hitting that portal, just nailing it right on it. And that's about it for the frontal catapult siege. Oh, one more thing, occasionally if you can get an angle on it, I'll show you right here, you can actually launch the rock over the wall, on top of the wall, and you can hit things that are on top of the wall. So for example, if there was an arrow cart, that was a bit far, but if there was an arrow cart up on top of this wall, you would be able to hit it. I mean, anywhere in that area, if there was an arrow cart, it would have been hit by that catapult. Whoever was manning it would have gotten knocked off, etc., etc. As a matter of fact, if there was an arrow cart inside behind the gate, we could even launch this rock over the gate entirely and hit it, assuming you're able to triangulate in on that position. But that's about it for frontal sieges. Obviously, catapult, you want to use it for wall most of the time, but as I said, if you happen to find yourself in the opportunity to use a catapult on the front of a wall, you want to hit the portal so you hit both the wall and the gate. If you happen to find yourself in a situation where there's two destructible walls like this, you can also, alternatively, you can hit the corner. You can hit this corner right here, and with that splash damage, you will strike both walls, again accomplishing all those goals we just talked about. It will do damage to the left wall and the right wall, getting them both down evenly and causing them to use the supply to repair both if they want to keep us out, in addition to giving us more time to get back there if we were to wipe and have to run back for a second rush, because they would have to build, as I said, both of them up to seal us out. If there is no corner, if they're just kind of linear, you know, just one here and then one here, and these are both walls, hovering your mouse over it will show you if it's a destructible wall or not. This is not destructible, this is not destructible, but this wall is, because it highlights. So firing, if this was a wall that was destructible, for example, if you were to fire right in the middle between both, you would be striking both. Therefore, as we just talked about, dealing damage to both and accomplishing some pretty cool goals. Okay, so catapult mastery traits. I will have, or already do have, depending on when you're watching this, a World vs. World video specifically dedicated to traits, but let's go into detail about the catapult traits. Before we talk about that, I just want to mention briefly, as with all siege, please never, 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 never drop any siege unless your commander specifically asks you to, for various reasons that we can get into in another video. But basically, let the commander do all the siege dropping. They know where to put it, they know how much supply they have, etc., etc. Always a good idea. Play it safe, err on the side of caution, don't drop siege unless you're specifically asked to. Hey, I want you to drop a catapult if you have one. I want you to drop a ram if you have one. So let's talk about traits. To look at traits, you will press B, you will click on rank and abilities, and then you'll get a lot of information. And we're going to look specifically at catapult mastery. So the first trait is increased damage done to walls by 20%. Great trait. Does a lot of extra damage, significantly more damage to walls, which, as I mentioned, is what we mainly use catapults for. Gravel shot now applies bleeding. Not the best trait, because we don't use gravel shot, ever. Please, ANET buff. Increase radius on all catapult skills. That's a pretty good trait. If the radius is wider, you have a better chance of hitting more things. So you have a better chance of hitting more sections of the wall. You have a better chance of hitting more people if you're firing on a Zerg, for example. So definitely a good trait. Love increasing the radius of things. Increases catapult damage by 20%, 25%. So that's just a general overall increased damage on gates, on walls, on people, everything. It just does more damage. Obviously, good trait. And the last one is where you get that siege bubble that we've already talked about, which is super good. Very, very nice. And cooldown is a bit long, but hey, you know, what can you expect? It blocks everything, every single projectile, no matter what the source is, mortars, everything. And it will protect your Zerg as well, so kind of if you're really getting hammered, you can get everybody to jump on top of that one cat and pop that and protect everybody. So can't have the whole world, I guess. You know, for a skill that strong, there's going to be a bit of a cooldown on it. So, okay, that's really all I have about catapults. I'm sure that there are other things that you will learn about catapults. I'm sure that I did not cover everything. But the thing is, these videos are intended for the very, very inexperienced person in World vs. World. These videos are intended to get your feet wet, basically, get you a little more comfortable with going out World vs. World, so that you will not be completely confused by what's happening. Thank you for watching. As always, I am Diesel from Sarah's Furnace and Legion of the Rogue Dragon. I'll see you in World v World.